Good morning, and thank you for joining us today as we talk about the state of our city. I want to first of all congratulate Margie Graff, wherever Margie went. There you are, thank you. And congratulate the Chamber on hiring Margie. Michelle Fox-Day left very big shoes to fill. I've met and worked with Margie for a little bit now, and you are definitely up to the task. So welcome again, and we really look forward to working with you. My thanks to Margie and Brian for your efforts and support in planning today's State of the City, and to the Chamber for sponsoring this. It's a great opportunity for all of us to come together and talk about what we are doing in the city. We want to update you on the year in review, what's on the front burner, and what we're hoping will come down the pike. No pun intended. I'm certain that we're all going to learn something, myself included. I had the opportunity to attend a meeting with Maryland Secretary of Commerce, Mike Gill, a few weeks ago, and he opened by saying, economic development is a team sport. Economic development is a team sport. I thought that was very important, and especially since we're entering fall season and the Stanley Cup champs are back in action, I thought the analogy was perfect. The team in economic development is all of us, working together with all of our partners and everyone skating in the same direction. Rob will introduce his two new directors, but I want to assure you that both Vic and Ricky join the city as willing partners in our quest to be an even better Rockville. Rockville 11 staff put together the montage you saw as you walked in, and I want to thank them very much. Rockville 11 is fabulous, and they didn't have very much warning, so I really want to say thank you to all of them. I want to highlight a few of the clips that you saw. Mayor and Council approved the restoration and preservation of the barns at the King Farm Farmstead, and the work has been completed. The Council and I have had the tour, and they are absolutely gorgeous. King Farm Farmstead Task Force spent the winter studying future uses, and I'm very hopeful that in the next 12 months, we will have a plan that will revitalize this farmstead for generations to come. The Mayor and Council also approved the Rockville Pike Plan and the opportunity to gain project status, champion project status, I apologize. The bar is very high for that designation. And I'm happy to say that the Twin Brook Quarter Project is working well with city staff in an effort to earn that title. They've already signed Wegmans, as most of us are thrilled, and I'm sure we'll hear some more good news in the coming months. Staff and the elected have been working on the Stone Street Corridor Plan. We've had numerous meetings with current business owners, Lincoln Park, and East Rockville neighborhoods. Stone Street is the spine connecting these neighborhoods to Metro and Town Center, and we're hopeful that MCPS, where is MCPS today, will soon find a new place for their storage and tractor trailers. Imagine, if you will, a walkable and attractive avenue, bringing housing for new residents, commerce, and activity to our community. On September 4th, MCPS opened the 5th elementary school in the city, named for Bayard Rustin, an African-American leader in the nonviolence movement, an advocate for civil and gay rights. I had the pleasure of being at Bayard Rustin on elementary school that morning to welcome the new students and some parents, and I have to say, oh my gosh, if you haven't been there, go. It is absolutely a wonderful place to learn. Thank you to MCPS and everyone who worked hard to make this happen, and Rockville staff as well. The city is collaborating with the county in the hopes of getting a permanent location for the Kid Museum. We thought we'd had the perfect spot, but we're continuing the search. So if any of you have a building with about 60,000 square feet of centrally located, metro accessible, perfectly priced and ready to sell space, please let us know. The Kid Museum would be an amazing asset and complement to our city. Another organization looking for a permanent location is the Rockville Science Center, a 501c3 organization who for 29 years has been providing scientific and engineering lectures and camps, maker spaces, robotics, Lego competitions, and April's Rockville Science Day in conjunction with Montgomery College. On September 7th, RSC sponsored a talk with Dr. Temple Grandin, Understanding Animal Behavior and Autism at the Strathmore Music Center. The city is exploring opportunities of partnering with the Science Center on a location in our town center. Just as the Chamber has a new president, Ready is looking for a new executive director. Rob and I sit on the search team along with Paul Newman, Susan Prince, and Lisa Sines. The Ready board is hopeful that we will fill that position in the next couple of months. Economic development does take a team effort. It requires collaboration and a sustained effort on the part of all of our stakeholders. It also helps to win some awards. Money Magazine named Rockville 2018 Best Place to Live in Maryland. According to Wallet Hub, we are the 9th most culturally diverse city in America. Livability.com placed Rockville #1 on their list of best cities for families in their latest ranking. And CareerBliss.com said Rockville is #9 on their list of happiest cities to work for in 2018. My congratulations and thanks to all who've partnered to make this happen. I'd now like to turn this portion over to Rob for his comments, and then we'll get to the fun. Questions from you all. Thank you. Thanks, Rob.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good morning. American humorist Will Rogers once lamented, "All I know about the government is just what I read in the papers." Well, Bridget and the rest of the council and I want for this government to do much, much better than that, and we constantly try to do that. We appreciate an ongoing conversation with you, with all of our residents, with our visitors, and we think that we got the opportunity to learn some things ourselves today. Bridget mentioned some of Rockville's latest accolades, and while we're very proud of those, awards and rankings are very, very nice when we receive them. They are a validation of hard work of city employees and the community. But it's even harder to maintain them. That takes even more work. But it's also encouragement for going even further. And yes, the city does receive much recognition. But how can we do better? How can we better assist our business community? How can we better assist our residents and our visitors, our guests to this community? That is the question that the mayor and council and my staff are constantly asking ourselves. No one's resting on their laurels, and we do not take for granted the opportunity and the privilege that we have to serve this community. It's a very special opportunity for all of us. We have a very talented team of employees who are at the top of their game. These are folks that are bringing a wealth of life and professional experience, talent, charisma, energy, and just a great team spirit to the benefit of this community. And I feel so blessed to have the opportunity to work alongside of them. And I feel very blessed for the community that we have these folks that care so much. We also have an extremely devoted and hardworking set of elected officials, and they put in a tremendous amount of time, far more than most people know. So in being asked, and I've been asked several times leading up to this morning, Rob, what do you think the state of the city is? And the first thing that comes to mind is we are in a state of constant motion. Constant motion because we're continually working to improve ourselves in all areas. We think that's important. There's so many different types of services that this organization provides that I really don't even want to begin to single them out. There's always public safety and the basic utilities and the keeping things safe for folks. But I think people in this community value extremely highly the other things, the opportunities for beautiful parks, wonderful recreation programs, and all of the other programs, the social services that we provide. And we also have a tremendous infrastructure of internal support, IT, HR, finance, organization, the city clerk and council and director of council operations office. All of those work internally to keep the wheels turning for the organization and keep bringing the services to the public. Last year, Bridget's alluded to some of the things that the city collectively has done. I am extremely proud and feel very fortunate with the appointment of two individuals to lead two very important operations in the city. One is our new police chief, Victor Brito, and I believe, Vic, you're here. Please. If some of you got a chance to peek at the film on the way in. It showed just a hint of the excitement that was going on that evening when Mayor Newton swore in Victor Brito as our newest police chief. I think the department's very excited. I think the community is going to majorly benefit from a lifetime of great knowledgeable experience that Vic will bring to the leadership of the police department. Another director position it was my privilege to fill this year is that of the Director of Community Planning and Development Services. Ricky Barker, and Ricky, I'm not sure if Ricky's, oh, Ricky made it. Ricky was struggling with a little traffic on the way in this morning, so glad you could make it in, Ricky. We've got big tasks ahead of us in community planning and development. From our permitting and development review responsibilities, which I know as businesses are extremely important to you, to contractors, to architects, engineers, surveyors, developers, small business folks. So many people interface with that department, and we are well on our way in improving a lot of processes, and we're very soon going to be asking for a great deal of input as we roll out some suggested improvements for your consideration. We also have the 2040 master plan that is rolling along. We benefited from scores of meetings in neighborhoods with residents and with very motivated neighborhood civic associations, HOAs, folks that came together and were kind enough to share what their vision of the future of Rockville should be. And we've been doing our level best to try to translate that into words, into plans. We want to be able to roll that back out and say, geez, did we come close to capturing the range of concerns, the range of ideas, thoughts, inspiration that were expressed at these meetings? So that will come soon, and ultimately hearings for the Planning Commission, which are public, and back to the Mayor and Council. But very important project helping us prepare a blueprint for the future of this community. We've been trying to improve our culture of customer service across the board. I think that this city has had a great reputation for customer service, but as I alluded to earlier, we can always do better. We need you, please, to help tell us how. We've been having sessions, listening sessions, some directed very much to the business and development community, as we try to get right down to brass tacks of what is it about our permitting process? What is it about how long it takes and what it costs and your interactions with city employees and our codes and regulations? All of these, at the end of the day, become very real issues for the business community as they deal with the city. And we know there's a lot of room for improvement. And as I said, we're going to bring some improvements for your review very shortly. The city's has engaged the state very recently and very vocally over concerns regarding potential widening of I-270, including participating in neighborhood meetings, hosting some meetings, sending formal communications to the state from the Mayor and Council and myself. And the Mayor and Council are extremely vigilant on this issue and will continue to be so. In public safety, we added in the last 2 years 5 additional police officers, and we've increased our presence in Town Center and the Twin Brook Nature Trail. We try to be responsive to requests from many neighborhoods for some attention to problems that residents identify. Also, all our police officers now, last year, were outfitted and trained on body-worn cameras. And we think that's very important for everybody's safety, including the officers. This was our 10th year in a row with no increase in the city's property tax rate. You can thank your Mayor and Council for that. And we're not planning one for next year either.
That's good to know.
Oh, that's our goal. What's coming? We'd like to make Well, one thing that might be exciting, particularly for the younger people in town, is we have a new youth skate park, which will be constructed at Welsh Park. This will be a completely new thing for this community. It won't resemble anything like we've had before, and I think will be extremely fun for skaters of all age, and another reason to make Rockville a destination in the region. Baltimore Road reconstruction project has been approved and is set to begin in earnest. The Swim and Fitness Center major renovation project will begin very soon. Neighborhood design standards will be developed in conjunction with our residents. Economic development incentives and policies will be devised in partnership with READY and the Chamber of Commerce. At this point, we're holding off just a little bit till that national search that Bridget alluded to is completed, and we've got our new chamber director. We'd like to have a new READY director, and then work together on some ideas for economic development incentives and policies. Electronic plan submittal will be a new capability and efficiency for our customers. The mayor and council approved that in this current budget. Opioid awareness and education. The mayor and council joined other communities in a class action lawsuit against opioid makers and distributors, and we are actively planning a mayor and council town meeting for early next year to help bring awareness and education to this looming crisis. We're looking towards ideas for a better facility for our public works and parks maintenance employees. That's a very important goal for me personally, and I think to help maintain the operations, the level of service in this community. We're looking to expand the role of arts and culture, working with VisArts and our Recreation and Cultural Advisory Board and other folks in the community. We think that we can be more of a destination for arts and culture in the future. We convinced the state to resurface a large stretch of State Route 355 this fall, and we are excited about that. From the Mixing Bowl, I think, to the college this fall. And while that's just one infrastructure project, I think that's one a lot of people have been waiting on. And we're going to be taking a harder look at the role the city can play in emergency response to natural and man-made disasters. One of our core responsibilities as a city. We're going to look at various ways we can address that issue. And more partnerships. In terms of partnerships, the city, public-private partnerships, Launch Labs 2, a partnership with Alexandria Real Estate. The mayor and council approved a $100,000 contribution to the creation of wet lab space to foster job creation in our research park. The city is also working with FRIT, Federal Realty, and the Women's Business Center on creating pop-up business spaces in some of the vacant storefronts in Town Square for emerging entrepreneurs. We're exploring joint planning of options for the former Rockshire Shopping Center, 7-acre site, with the property owners to see if a public use facility like a small community center could be incorporated into a new residential project or mixed-use project at that location. And so at this point, we're looking for your questions. Thank you very much.
One of the mayor and council's top priorities is to improve the plan review process and other development permitting processes. How do you see that happening?
Well, Ricky's got a lot of experience in this. I think that's one reason Rob chose him. We're streamlining it. It will become much more inclusive in the beginning so that you're not in silos. City departments aren't in silos. You don't have to submit plans to one department and then after that review is finished, go through the whole thing again. It'll be more concurrent. So I think that will help a lot. And if you have any other suggestions, please help us out.
We have as a matter of fact, a mayor and council work session coming on October 29th, 7 p.m. I'd like to invite you to attend. One of the 3 topics will be exactly that subject. And our intention at that point is to roll out some ideas that we've been working on. Some are very specific. Some we're still looking for some feedback on that we think will come close to addressing if not nail, some of the concerns that were identified in the listening sessions that we had. We had our ISD, our Inspection Services Division, as well as the Planning Division, have both held listening sessions, multiple ones, with stakeholders, with our customers, and all hands were on deck. We had all of our staff there. I felt it was very important to have these sessions, very important for every member of those divisions to be there and listen. We didn't do a lot of talking. We kind of teed up the questions and sat back and listened, and we got some fantastic feedback. We got some extremely astute people that we work with in the business community, and they were not shy about sharing some things with us. It hits on a lot of different levels: technology. It hits on some of our regulations and standards as expressed in some of our codes right now. It comes to our linear process, the amount of time it takes, and how we are organized internally. And time is money for business, as you all know. So we want to have that expedited process, as the mayor mentioned. But I think all of these things, what we do have, though, the thing that excites me the most is we've got a core of really talented, motivated employees that want to bring improvement. And if we didn't have that, we weren't going to go anywhere with this. But we do have that. I'm convinced of it, and I'm confident we're going to get what we need, where we need to get.
I'm sure both Rob and Bridget will acknowledge that the Chamber has been very active in speaking up on these issues, but I want to encourage everybody in the audience and anybody else that may see this afterwards. The Chamber can advocate for businesses generally, but it's important to hear the individual stories, to hear what your experiences have been, and the same thing with the residents. Again, you touched on this briefly, but I want to ask another question about another of the top priorities set forth by the Mayor and Council, which is to formulate a policy on economic incentives and develop supporting programs. Could you comment on that?
You want to go first?
Well, I mentioned just real briefly earlier that we're going to begin that conversation in earnest once we've got a new leadership ready. The national search is underway, and Bridget mentioned that she and I have the privilege to serve on a search committee, and we're the services of a professional search firm have been employed, and we're very hopeful we're going to get somebody extremely talented that can bring ideas and perspectives from another place and from their experience. But we've got some thoughts, but I think this is going to be a larger conversation. I think we're going to really try to brainstorm some things and then roll it out, much as we are with the development review. We want to roll out some ideas for a lot of conversation and feedback.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add, because that's exactly right, is we currently have in place a facade incentive program, a move to Rockville incentive program. We're looking for the next generation of that. As we look to reuse some of our existing buildings, what incentives or what can we do to help them in a transitional period? It's awfully expensive if you have to fire suppress an old building or deal with the parking issues. So those are some of the conversations that we'd like to have with you all.
This is a question we've heard a few times, the next one over the last few years. How is the city working with Federal Realty to protect the enormous economic investment that we all have, not just the city, but all of us, in Rockville Town Square?
We are working as hard as we can to partner with Federal Realty. Councilmember Feinberg, myself, Rob, have a meeting next week with, I believe, Don Wood, but definitely with Deirdre Johnson, to talk about where things are right now. We're as concerned as anybody that this gem, this town square, town center area, continue to be the vibrant community gathering place that it was envisioned many, well, actually decades, but many years ago. We constantly evaluate or reevaluate the parking situation. We hear all the time that it's a challenge to pay for parking, but the problem is we have quite a bit of debt on those garages. It's not fair for just the citizens, the taxpayers, the businesses who own property in the city to front all of that. So, we're constantly looking at ways to balance our fiduciary responsibility with what we need to do. I really think we need more retail downtown. We're hoping.
Yeah. From the moment I arrived, the mayor and council strongly encouraged me to try and build more bridges to Federal Realty, to have more regular communication, and to have a more effective relationship. It's a work in progress, and I'll give Federal Realty some credit. They, in some key areas, have really listened and worked with us on some things. We partnered just as recently as this summer with them on some things. The city, your mayor and council authorized some funds to expand the music program. We pretty much doubled it, the Friday night band and music program. Also, most recently with VisArts, at the end of the summer, I think there was about 6 or 7 weeks on Wednesday nights when VisArts came out onto the square, and each week did a different type of art participation project for the public, where kids and others could just jump in and get involved, whether it was pottery, ceramics, or painting, or drawing, and just bring it out, get outside of the building, and there was some expense involved, a little bit, and yet I think it was the spirit of partnership that we said, hey, yeah, let's just do it. Let's continue to promote our assets there, like VisArts, and let's make more people aware of it by bringing it outdoors. And I can foresee us doing more of that kind of thing in the future.
What's the future of hometown holidays?
It's a topic
Short but sweet. The question.
Topic on an agenda for the 8th or the 24th. 24th, next week. Please come. We have all been talking about what's going to happen with hometown holidays. It's an incredible opportunity for the city to take it to the next step. So come and hear. Yeah,
this is a kind of a good news, bad news kind of a topic. The really good news is that the locations that we have historically used for some of the programming for hometown holidays are not going to be there. That's the bad news, but good news is that we're going to be having development occur on them. The Duval lot and the Metro 3 Folger Pratt property are going, they're in motion to be developed, and while I think we're going to be fine for the upcoming hometown holidays, it's the year beyond. It's the 2020 that we're most concerned about. By then, these projects should be well underway in terms of construction, and we'll have lost some space. So we want to look at some ideas about how we can keep this as viable and exciting an event as it has been, even with the loss of that space.
And Rob touched on this briefly also. A high priority listed by the mayor and council is to identify and establish public-private partnerships for the city, including corporate, private, nonprofit, and educational. How do you see that rolling out, Mayor?
Well, I mentioned a partnership with the Kid Museum. I also mentioned the Science Center. We are working very closely with both entities, helping them see where they want to go and doing studies. It's the way we have to do things, especially these days. But it's the nonprofits that also help us so much in our entire community. And so bringing that educational additional resource with the Science Center and the Kid Museum, it would be a boom. So those are the first two on my list for sure.
Sure. I think you nailed it.
Nailed. Okay, we'll move on. Next question is, the demographics of the city have changed enormously over the past few years. How is the city responding to these changes? Specifically, how is the city creating a workforce that reflects its population and its needs? I'll read you the second part, maybe to help you. Are active measures being taken to see that boards, commissions, and task forces created by the city reflect the changing demographics of the city?
I could answer the first one if you'd like to take the second. Okay. With respect to the city's paid workforce, you're absolutely right. The community is diverse and becoming increasingly so, which is part of the beauty of this community. So one of the things that we're doing, I'll give one example. In our police department, we have a economic incentive for officers and other employees to learn additional languages. We think that that's really important. We're also taking a look at our training regimen, and in conjunction with HR, our Human Resources Department, and where now we have a full-time trainer, talented gentleman who works with us, and all the departments. We're trying to bring training that's very appropriate to that, among other topics, to our employees, where we've got sensitivity in our interactions with our residents that's very much called for and important to be effective and to frankly even safe. If folks, particularly in an emergency situation, can't speak to each other, lives could be lost. So we understand the importance of it, and we will be emphasizing it increasingly in the future.
A question again that I'm sure you've heard before. A lot of challenges that everybody has in today's world. We have competitors to our north and south.
Can I jump in and
mention
answer?
those, but you know who I'm referring to. I'm sorry.
I was going to jump in and answer the second part of that
Oh,
question.
absolutely.
May
I'm
I?
sorry.
Just because I think it's important to get out there. Diversity is very important to all of us in the city, and the mayor and council have been out in front. We held a diversity town hall last year, which gave us a lot of great ideas, including the diversity of the flags that you see that represent countries that our residents come from. We also have installed an LGBTQ liaison, both at City Hall and in the police department. We're working very closely on things that include everybody in our community. Several of us have attended some of the LGBTQ events in the county, working with our partners, Councilmember Katz and Elrich, on county council priorities as well. To housing, I think it's important that Rockville be a community that supports housing that's affordable to all levels. And that is a very important thing to me. It's why Fred and I stayed in Rockville and raised our children here, is we wanted to live in a community that was diverse in all means of the word diversity, and that includes economic, education, religious, everything. To that end, I think the city is working more closely with our partners to bring workforce housing and housing for people who work in the city. We need to pay people enough to be able to afford housing to work in the city. That's something I'm constantly at Rob about, is how can we pay our employees enough so that they too can enjoy the riches of the city of Rockville. As to boards and commissions, according to the charter, it is the mayor's opportunity to nominate members to boards and commissions and the council's opportunity to confirm. To that end, I have striven, whatever the word is, to work with that diversity across all of our boards and commissions, and it's the diversity I just mentioned. It's neighborhood, it's racial, it's gender, it's thought. Not everybody on a board or commission should think the same way, because otherwise you don't get a representative opinion coming out of that board or commission. So that has been my opportunity and my privilege in the past couple years to do that, and sometimes there's a little bit of a yang there, but if you have suggestions, if you'd like to serve, please let me know, because we're always looking for good people. Thank you for letting me jump back in.
Glad you did, because that's a very important area to be discussed. So I started to ask you about competitors to our north and south, in Gaithersburg and North Bethesda. What can we do to encourage the development up and down the pike and in the town center to compete with? They're tough competitors, and we know that. What can we do about that?
Well, first of all, and that's why I mentioned the 4 awards that we've gotten most recently, it is important to know how good we are and then use that. Doesn't always do the right thing to just cry about things. You've got to get out there and have a way to fix it. Sure, Crown and Rio don't, you don't have to pay for parking, but we've got Metro. Let's talk about the positive things that we've got going, and let's work together on them. That's why this is such a partnership. And I'll say it again, economic development is a team partnership, and if you're not getting what you need from the city, then you've got to let us know so that we can do better. And it's helpful to come with examples of ways we can do better and not just concerns about what we're not doing. Let's partner together and make this work. And I think as the new shiny thing south of us, that too shall fade. We're going to be here forever.
I would add, with respect to some of the emerging industries, some of the leading employers, high-tech, bio. Increasingly, it's about clusters. It's not necessarily, and local region, not necessarily what falls expressly within our corporate limits. We can win as a city if we're winning as a region.
That's right.
And increasingly, this area, we're blessed with a fantastic nucleus of existing employers, others that are coming, people who are attracted to the universities, to the education level of the residents, to the hospitals and medical facilities that are here, proximity to DC and the mass transit. Those are all really, really strong, and the quality of life, of course. All rolled together make a very large argument for relocations to this region by these emerging industries. And I think working together, I don't see it as a zero-sum game. I think that we've got opportunities to work with our neighbors. Matter of fact, I think we must work with our neighbors to help attract. And if a particular firm lands in Gaithersburg rather than in Rockville, Rockville's still going to benefit, and vice versa. I do want to express the appreciation I have for the folks at Gaithersburg who actually were the template for us on the Launch Labs partnership that I mentioned just a little bit earlier, where we have a public-private partnership there. They did it first with Alexandria Realty and have a Launch Lab installation, and Gaithersburg was extremely cordial in inviting us to come tour it. I've met separately with the city manager and his economic staff, and they couldn't have been more helpful in giving us tips and ideas on how to negotiate, with that firm and to exact the highest level of public benefit possible from a partnership like this. And I think that's the spirit that we really want to have, and we certainly want to be that kind of neighbor too. So I can see this being a regional approach increasingly.
Good point, good point.
What is the city doing to attract younger residents who will be able to live, work, and the way the next one was a capital A-N-D, and play in the city? Might have come from a younger resident, I don't know.
Might have come from our kids. Well, I think that is what we're trying to do. We're trying to be, and years ago, I think it was Town Center Action Team who put together sort of a motto for the city, a place that people can work, live, play, and retire. So we'd like to be that city that encompasses all generations and ways of life, activities. To that end, we have to balance. Those who live in urban areas also struggle with the activity that's in urban areas and the time that those activities end in the evening for those people to get up and go to work in the morning. So I think we're trying very hard. Rockville is a city of neighborhoods, and I count our urban areas and our town center as a neighborhood. So it's important that we protect the quality of life in every neighborhood, which also means we've got to talk about what we can do better.
Yes. And in addition, the mayor and council are considering a work session on December 17th that would address millennials. Who are they? How can we work best with that age group? And in particular, how can we encourage folks that consider themselves or are millennials to be engaged with the community to an even higher degree, and the job opportunities and the professional opportunities, the educational opportunities, and what can we learn from them? This is a different, this is in many respects a different mindset than previous generations, and I think we can all learn from each other. So we are looking to have a very formal discussion that's public, and we'll have an opportunity to learn some more.
And one more thing I might add to that, because there are representatives here today from Montgomery College and Universities of Shady Grove, and the city is working closely. Going forward, we'll do it with Universities of Shady Grove as well, but with Montgomery College, on ways that we can bridge that opportunity between college education, college students who want access to town center and live in our community. So I think that's another avenue that we have, opportunity actually, that we have in the city to work with our universities.
Mm-hmm.
I'll read this the way it's phrased. I think it opens a larger question, but I'll read it the way it's actually written. How can we identify the arts' dollar value in city economics and expand that into the arts and its value generally to our community and what we're doing about that?
Go ahead.
Well, that's a big question, and I'm going to say that the arts in general, and particularly from my own experience in other cities, other states, I guess the general concept of things you can do in arts and culture, whether it's investing in heritage things with your museums and history, or whether it's fine arts or children's programs or a nonprofit like VisArts, all of this helps to generate excitement and activity. It can be a force multiplier for the economy. I think it helps bring in dollars that recirculate throughout our local economy, and has proven, not just suspected, but been proven to be in numerous places a bona fide economic driver for communities. And I think that's why Rockville is increasingly involved in that area, and I can see us doing even more in the future.
Yeah, no, I agree, and it was several years ago when Alice Nappy, director of VisArts, came to me and said, people come for an art show or a program here, and they say, what else is there? And we started talking in the city about an arts and culture district, or a way to incentivize more arts businesses, galleries, things like that to come in the city, and where would that be? And there have been some discussions about where places should be, but there definitely is a need for more cultural opportunities in the city. We've got many. We've got this beautiful building. We've got so many things that we can do, but how can we enhance and market them and let people know that this is all going on here in the city? So yeah, it's a challenge. But when you look at, and just the other night we were talking at the volunteer appreciation, when you look at volunteer hours, 60,000 hours volunteered by people in the city of Rockville last year alone. I mean, that's incredible. You can't put a dollar value on it, it's millions. But the economic benefit to the city for arts and culture, for volunteers, for people who are just out and about, it's infinite.
And one more point too, the demographics in general nationally, with approximately 10,000 folks a day that are baby boomers, and that in particular that are retiring, about 10,000 a day nationally. Increasingly people, and these are folks who are vibrant, active, want to continue to engage their minds, and lifelong learning, and increasingly an interest in the arts at that stage. And I think that in essence there's a market, a growing market for art and culture. There's also the importance of introducing that to our young people and doing more collaborations with the schools, particularly the elementary and middle schools, to foster an early appreciation in the arts and culture. And again, I'd extend that to history and heritage, particular interest of mine. But I think in a community that's had the wisdom to preserve some really key buildings and to support great partners like Peerless Rockville and the Montgomery County Historic Society, we have a wonderful platform to do, along with VisArts, tremendous amount of increased programming in the future.
Believe it or not, one of the chamber members came up to me, didn't even know that this theater existed here. So we're spreading the word some here today as well.
Yeah, we can do a better job.
Share with us a little bit about what's going on with the Stone Street study, please.
Oh, that's a great opportunity. I really have to give a shout out to our staff. They have done a very good job very good job of working with the neighborhoods, of listening, of trying to synthesize a myriad of opinion into what would best work, enhance our viability economically, culturally, and for housing types. And I will tell you that MCPS is one of our biggest challenges on this road. Those trailers have been sitting there for almost 30 years. They use some of them for storage, but and I think council member, I almost called you Senator, Katz is still here, but he has been instrumental in working as a bridge with MCPS, trying to help us get the storage use to move to an area of this county that would be more appropriate, so that we could have that redeveloped into something that would really be an asset. And whether that something is, only housing or is housing and retail, that's really not for us to determine. I think the market should determine that, but it would be incredible to have a wonderful safe passage for the community to and from Metro, to add another area for the city and arts and culture district, whatever it ends up being. It's just ripe for another step for the city of Rockville. So we're having a work session coming up. We've got, it's October? Sorry, my dates are not in my head this morning. It's way too early.
Yeah.
Is it in October? Ricky, do you know when our work session is?
On Stone Street is going to sit at the planning commission.
Yeah.
And then there's a public open comment on it. And it's going back to November 14th for a public hearing.
Super. Thank you very much. I hope you all heard that. But Planning Commission, I did see some members here this morning. Thank you for your service, and they are the next step in this wonderful process project that we're working on.
Right. On the staff side, we got some great feedback from the community, the mayor and council, to look at some of the infrastructure component of that study. And the streetscape, the intersection with Park and Horner and Stone Street, those are things that we're beginning to put drawing pencil to paper in terms of designing and generating some cost estimates and starting to see what we can begin to translate into our next budget proposal for the consideration by the mayor and council and the public. We don't want, this is certainly not going to be one of those proverbial plans that gets done and gets put on a shelf and collects dust. We are actually, we've already begun some of the design scenarios, and we're already talking about where do these pieces fall into the budget. We want to make an action plan to implement this study, which was the result of numerous neighborhood meetings that were hosted, and we had them at Lincoln Park Community Center. Tremendous turnout. It's one of the meetings were just beginning about the time I started here, and I got to tell you, that's one of the things that really, really impressed me about the community was the level of engagement, the sheer number of residents that came out. Sometimes you go to a lot of other cities, even bigger cities, you'll get 5, 10, 15 people tops. Here we had standing room only, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 people. And they stayed, and we had opportunities for them to sit down and draw things for us, and work breakout tables, and it was just a great process to watch. And while not everybody's dream or vision can be implemented, I think what we've tried to do our best, and in conjunction with the mayor and council, is to latch on to those themes, latch on to those larger points, and see if we can pull that together into a really good plan that can be brought forward in the budget and get accomplished.
So I'm going to give you a heads up before I do what is actually the last question that I have, believe it or not. I expected to get a lot more today. We got 2. So I'm going to give you a moment while I read this question and while the others answer, to give a few thoughts, and maybe you want to just make a few closing remarks before we finish today. So the last question I have is, Rockville Town Square and the surrounding business development area appears to be somewhat urban in design, yet the city does not appear to embrace what an urban environment entails: traffic, noise, late night activity. How is the city working to create a vibrant nightlife?
Somebody else who stays up late and doesn't have to get up in the morning is worried about nightlife. Well, I think we are working very hard to become more urban in all of its manifestations. I mean, I think we have a big challenge in the city. We're divided on the east side by 355, 6 lanes, the Metro and Amtrak. We are divided on the western side by 12 lanes, I-270. It's kind of hard to orient yourselves when you've got these big permanent situations. I think transit is a huge opportunity for the city. I've advocated for a long time for a circulator. I think it would get people out of their cars and give an opportunity to get to Metro and not have to build all the parking that we're always talking about. I think as our neighborhoods on the fringes, you know, the buildings there, you've got College Gardens with an opportunity for a shopping center, you've got Twinbrook. I mean, those are places that neighborhoods want to have good opportunities for shopping and dining, but we're also very cognizant of the need to keep that within that structure and not fall back into the neighborhoods. So I think it's a challenge that we're all working on, is how do we protect our neighborhoods as well as encourage good development. And it's all about good development, in my opinion. Things that are assets and bring people together. Fred and I lived on Azalea Drive when that little shopping center on Nelson was considering bringing in an establishment that sold beer. And there were a lot of people, and we were, you know, 25 below 30. We lived there 3 years when that conversation was going on, and we were dying to have a place we could go get a beer and a meal. But some of the people who'd lived there a long time were like, wait a minute. So I see the challenge between people who want to have opportunities for going out, but other people who are afraid of what that change might be. And look, Hard Times is still there 35 years later, and it's doing great. So I think it's all of us getting together and talking, and I think that's the biggest opportunity we have as a city is, who do we want to be when we grow up? And Rob said it before, and I think he's absolutely right. A rising tide lifts all boats. What goes on north and south of us is an asset to the city as well. We can all benefit. And if that big A company does come to Montgomery County, that will help Rockville too. It will also provide challenges. If it goes anywhere in the metropolitan region, it will provide opportunities and challenges for all of us. So I think we need to look at things in that regard as well, and I thank you for bringing that up, because that is the very best way of looking at things, is as an opportunity.
Okay. I think where town center is concerned, to the extent that question might have been aimed also a little bit at town center, one of the most important things to customers, to potential customers, is to feel, first of all, safe. Is this an environment I can feel safe in? And that's something that your mayor and council and staff have been paying a lot of attention to. Federal Realty has traditionally employed a private security firm, as they do at some of their other properties. But we both agreed that that was insufficient, particularly if you want to talk about the late night and the nightlife, where some of these venues are not closing till 1:30 or later, and there's folks that are out in the wee hours and could be in a vulnerable position as they go back into parking garages, down streets that might be darker, you know, than they want, and things like that. So we've ramped it up from the standpoint of supplementing what FRIT does by providing assigned officer patrols Thursdays through Sunday evenings and late into the evening. As we get our staffing up in the police department, I think that we're working to get the overall numbers of police officers up so that we have more folks that we can deploy to special details like town center, and get back to a point where we can have foot patrols, get back to a point where we can have bike patrols, which presently we don't have a lot of because we hadn't added officers for a lot of years. At this point, I think that we're making a big emphasis on, hey, you know, it's safe to come here. Okay, that's first and foremost. Beyond that, I think it's the community standard, as Bridget was alluding to. It's an ongoing conversation, and there's no right or wrong answer. I think it's one of those things that's it's going to be a fluid conversation, and we're going to have an opportunity to check in on it frequently, because, you know, one person's idea of a vibrant nightlife is somebody else's idea of, hey, I got to put my kid to bed at 8:30 for elementary school tomorrow morning, and this is a nightmare. And I live right up above that bar. And how do you strike that balance? It's all about finding that balance. We do have codes, we do have some protections and measures in place, noise ordinances that the county enforces, police officers and others who can be responsive to calls of concern, of nuisances. But we also want to engage, and we have been and want to do more so, with the business community. Okay, we want to have those conversations with the proprietors of those establishments and say, look, you may have a legal right, to have, and it might not be exceeding the law in terms of noise and decibel levels, but we're nevertheless having concerns expressed because we're also a residential neighborhood. And can we find some compromise here? Can we find some ways to work together to avoid these kind of problems and concerns? And I think it's one of those things that's going to happen on a lot of different levels. I think, too, we've tried to be sensitive to the homelessness issue that's occurred. I think that's sort of in conjunction with that area, and sometimes for some folks a feeling of safety. We have found a great partner in the county and a great partner with some of the nonprofit organizations like EveryMind that do outreach, that have crisis intervention teams and folks that will come and genuinely try to render assistance and provide better options for folks that are struggling and out on the street. Because that situation can be a perceived detriment to potential business when it happens, particularly and frequently. So we don't want that to become a policing matter, although our police officers are trained and increasingly trained in how to appropriately and lawfully deal with situations as they arise. But we want to continue to try and get folks help and alleviate that aspect of it as a concern. And that had been raised as a concern by others that were interested in the nightlife, but boy, some of the folks we run into. So just a few examples.
Give you each an opportunity to give us a minute or two of a brief closing, just to sum up what you, as Bridget has commented about what Rockville might be when it grows up. I'm still trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up, but we'll get there in a minute. Rob?
You go first.
Oh. Okay. Well, I think you could be a talk show host, that's for sure. You got some potential.
I finally figured out what it is.
Well, thank you, Brian, and thank you to the Chamber of Commerce again, and to all of you for being here. I don't have a lot to say in closing other than I can just really appreciate the fact that you're here. I think it speaks volumes to we who are your servants in public service. We know that people in this community care. We know that people are interested in new ideas, interested in better ways to address concerns and problems. I think none of you would be here right now if you weren't interested in those kind of things. And that gives us a lot of momentum on our end to feel encouraged to continue to strive and serve you that way. The business community is part of the lifeblood of Rockville. We are sincere when we say we want to be a better partner. It's all about access and partnership. I want to express, and if that point hasn't come across yet, an extremely open invitation to anybody in commerce at any level that we are approachable, we are genuinely interested in listening. We want to think about what your suggestions are and your ideas, because we believe that we don't have all the answers. That's something important for you to know, is that we don't believe we have all the answers, not even close. We must have your feedback as a business community to do our jobs as well as we can possibly do them. Thank you.
my thanks to you all as well, and to you, Brian and Margie, again, for hosting us, to the Chamber for hosting us this morning. It is all about partnerships. It's what we've worked towards. I have an open door as well, and the council is all here this morning, and they do as well. So please share your ideas with us. Don't always wait for community forum. We want to hear things. There are a couple things we didn't touch on today, and that's the missing middle of housing. I think some of our new developments give us an opportunity to explore that opportunity, and missing middle is very keen. It is a way to bring a lot more diversity into our city. The other thing we didn't really talk about was seniors. And so much of Rockville's population is turning seniors, myself a couple years ago. So, you know, we're all getting there. And I think our senior population affords us an incredible opportunity to reach back to their expertise and engagement. And they've maybe got a little more time. Some of us have a little bit more time. But Rockville has started the Villages program. And if you're not aware of it, please get aware. It's a wonderful opportunity through our Rockville Senior Center. Trish Evans is responsible for that program, and neighborhoods are becoming their own villages and their own opportunities to age in place, which so many of us want to do. So I thank you all again for being here, for your continued support of our great city, and I look forward to working with you as we go forward. Thank you.
Let me again thank Bridget and Rob for coming and sharing your thoughts with us. Get involved in your chamber. Get involved in your city. There are lots of opportunities there to do that, and I see that Ms. Margie is coming up again, so please do.
Did you want to ask questions from the floor?
Did you want to ask questions from the floor?
No, we're good.
Okay, I want to thank everyone for coming, and I also would like to invite anyone that wants more information about what the Chamber of Commerce does, and to meet our board of directors and committee chairs. We're having an informational session tomorrow morning at 8:15 at Intelligent Office on the 3rd floor conference room, and we welcome you, and thank you again so much for coming. And thank you, Brian, and thank you, Mayor and Rob. And what I loved the most is what you said, is the open communication and your accessibility. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Margie.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.